It's more important what's God want to do in this world, and how do we become a part of that?
There's nothing that draws the body of Christ closer together than when we get on mission with each other in His name.
Are the church, and when you start to understand, when you can grasp the power of this church, actually that is the hope of the world, that the gates of hell can't stand against it, when you start to understand that when we become broken and we become shaken and we become awake, when we become alive, God is able to do some mighty things.
Good morning. How are you guys doing? Woo. Hey, welcome to Cornerstone. And just to introduce myself, my name is Dave Thompson, and I have the greatest job in the world. Now, Betsy just said, sit tight for an incredible message. I just want to go ahead and set the standard right. It's going to be moderately okay. All right? I said I have the greatest job in the world, and that is I have the amazing pleasure of leading our middle school students here at Cornerstone, the greatest age group of all time. Now, some would ask, why, Dave? Why would you say this is the greatest age group of all time? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Several reasons. One, they're just a blast. They're absolutely amazing. You know, their brains have just discovered kind of seeing things from a new angle, and so they're ready to deal with more complex issues and more critical thinking, and so we just have an amazing opportunity to discuss really, really important things at this age. At the same time, they're not so grown that they still have fun. And so I literally get paid to have fun. It's amazing. I'm paid to be their friends, and I would do it for free, but, I like money too. It's an amazing job. Another reason I love this age group is because studies have shown that adults who work with this group of kids, middle schoolers, 6th through 8th grade, have the greatest potential to create a lasting impact in those kids' lives. I love my job. My job is absolutely amazing. But if I could be really honest, there are some kind of not so exciting side effects of my job. The number one kind of most gets down to the core of who I am is the longer I spend serving middle school students, I've kind of come to realize that every year they stay the same age. I have somewhere between 11 and 14-year-olds. That's kind of the age group I have. And every year they stay the same age, but I get older. And time is brutal. No one prepares you for how quickly you're going to be out of date. You come out of high school, you get out into the world, you go into college, you just think you're gonna be the most relevant person the rest of your life, and then you meet a 14-year-old and they just smack you down, put you back in your place. They're mean. I love them. It never fails, I'll have an event happening and some middle school girl will be like, Dave, come be in my TikTok video. And I'm like, shut up, I don't even know what that is. Stop making fun of me. You want to be my friend on MySpace? Time can be so cruel. Some things just don't hold up. I'll give you a great example. There was an entire generation of you who thought that this picture, when you saw that haircut, you thought, hey boy, hey. And guys, don't laugh. Because if you were born between 1968 and 1974, 1 in 8 of you probably had that haircut. And at the same time, you thought that this was attractive. Some things just don't hold up, right? They have an expiration date. Have you tried going back and watching a movie you really loved whenever you were a kid? It's not as good as you remembered it, is it? kind of full of cringe. Just kind of makes you uncomfortable. You wish your kids weren't watching this movie with you. You're thinking, how did your parents let you watch this movie? Most fashion, most TV, most films, eventually they all kind of go out of fashion. They kind of go out of style. They have an expiration. But some things actually seem to be timeless. I'll give you a great example. Star Wars. Timeless. Some movies that they made way back in the day. I don't even know, I wasn't alive yet. 78, thank you, sir. 10 years before I was born. They were so good that they decided to make 3 prequels. Then 15 years later made 3 sequels. Why? Because they know that if they create a compelling story and they slap the Star Wars name on it, people are going to line up to put their money out so that they can watch it. Timeless. When I was in 6th grade, there were these, I don't know if they were shorts or pants. They were either really short pants or really long shorts. I'm not for sure which. But JNCOs, they were really in style. And let me just kind of explain what a JNCO pant was. Again, they were long. They were short pants or long shorts. I'm not sure which. And the leg was as wide as the waist was. They were really, really ugly. But for a brief time in 1999, I really thought that I looked really cool in them. And then they died. And some of you keep trying to bring them back. No, sorry, just stop. They died. But at the same time, Chuck Taylors by Converse in that time were really popular. And you know what? Chuck Taylors were really popular for years before that. And to this day, Chuck Taylors are still popular. JNCOs died. Chuck Taylors stayed alive, right? They're timeless. I don't think there's ever going to come a time where Chuck Taylors will not be popular. Which leaves me with a really important question. What is timeless for Christians? What is timeless for Christians? What are the Christian things that will outlive us all? What defines a Christian? Or what does people who help people know Jesus and make him know, what do they look like? How can we stand in a crowd and say, yep, that's a Christian right there, I can see. A few weeks ago, or several weeks ago, Pastor Alex, at part of his message, he was talking about the shirt that was being handed out, and it said Christian on it, right? And so some might think that, yeah, it's my Christian t-shirt. That tells the world that I am Christian. Let's just put on our shirt, let's go out into the world, and we'll tell everyone. But if you've seen as many Christian t-shirts as I have, you would realize that so many of them had an expiration date before they were made. Or no, maybe it's not the t-shirt, maybe it's the cross I wear, right? Maybe it's if I put a cross around my neck and I put it on, then the world will know that I believe in Jesus. No, wait, no, it's not the cross, it's a cross tattoo. That's what it is. Oh, wait, no, because some people don't think that tattoos are okay. Or maybe it's how Christians stand on very important moral issues. We can look throughout history and say, yeah, Christians all stood in agreement on this issue, or they all stood in agreement on this issue. And that's how we can tell. But historically speaking, and today, you will find Christians standing on all sides of every major moral issue. There were Christians fighting for and against the abolition of slavery. Sorry, I have a 2-year-old. There were Christians who were fighting for and against women's suffrage or their right to vote. There were Christians fighting for or against the civil rights movement. Historically, we've never actually had a united front on any major issue. So let's just agree that no one agrees on what a Christian should or should not look like, except as I read my Bible, as I see what Paul writes, I see that Paul seems to have an idea that some things had an expiration date and some things are timeless. And yes, although fashion might change, these things will not. Paul, in his letter to the Colossians, he seems to allude that some things seems to need to go away. And in chapter 3, verse 7, if you've ever been married, you've probably heard this verse before. I just want to give you a heads up. It's a timeless marriage verse. But chapter 3, verse 7 says, "You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived." Listen to that language. Don't miss this. You used to live that way. You used to walk in these ways. You used to. They're past tense. In other words, these things, they're not part of who you are now. He continues, he says, "You used to walk in these ways in the life you once lived, but now you must also rid yourselves of all such things as these: anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from your lips." To which everyone just thought about the latest meme that they shared in regards to the current political situation. Anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language. Paul is saying that there is no place for these things. You have to get rid of them. They have an expiration date. He continues, he says, "Do not lie to each other, since you have taken off your old self with the practices and you have put on a new self." Paul says, this is out of style. He said, you took this off a while ago. He said, this is no longer a part of you. You took that off. You took off your old self as well as its practices. And you put on your new self, which is being renewed in knowledge in the image of its creator. Here, there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave or free, but Christ is all and is in all. Paul says you have taken these things off. You've cut the party off the back. You washed the Aquanet out. You took off the Jinkos. You've taken off your old self as well as its practices, and Christ is all and is in all. So anger, rage, malice, slander, filthy language, that died when you took them off. Then he continues, and don't miss this, verse 12. It's going to sound so familiar again if you got married. It says, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourself in compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." Paul says, you took this off. He said, this is out of date. This is no longer a part of who you are. You got rid of it. That's no longer even a part of your closet. And instead, you've put on compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Compassion. He says you put on compassion. What does compassion even mean? What does compassion even mean? The better translation of the phrase that kind of would have gone together to create that word would have been, I love you with all my bowels. Gross, I know, right? You know, we've said, I love you with all my heart, I love you with all my heart, and this it would have been more of, I love you with all my bowels. Paul is saying that I want you to wake up in the morning, I want you to put on this urgency. You know that feeling you get in the pit of your stomach when you see someone who is in pain, when you see someone who is hurting, that feeling you get deep down, your guts get all twisted. He said, I want you to love with all your bowels. Guys in the room, if you want to get some points real quick, just turn to your loved one. Go ahead, do it. Turn to your loved one. Put your arm around her. Say, honey, I love you with all my bowels. Say it. No, do it. Don't do that. That's disgusting. What's wrong with you? Paul says that we should first be people who love with everything. We are first people who put on compassion. Regardless of if you already warned them not to, put on compassion. regardless if they should have tried harder, regardless of whatever your news network says about those people. Come on, we all have our sin, excuses for why we don't extend compassion to one another. Paul says kindness. Do you know what kindness is? You see, we often confuse kindness with simply not being unkind. We think kindness is just me not being mean. I didn't do anything mean, yeah, but were you kind? Paul didn't say don't be mean, he said be kind. Kindness is loaning your strengths to someone who doesn't have it. It's what kindness is. Think of the kindest people you know. The kindest people you know. They hold what they have with open hands. Kindness. Kindness says that I have something and you don't, but here, let me extend what I have to you. Humility. Humility is viewing yourself, viewing myself as I really am in relation to other, in relation to God. Let me put it this way. Humility is knowing the distance between where you stand and where he sits. You can't possibly fathom the distance. You can't comprehend it. The God that we worship, the Creator Father that we sing songs to, he spoke and the universe came into existence. Our sun, which isn't even that impressive in relation to other stellar objects. Our sun can fit over 1 million of our planet inside of it. And it is mere vapor that came out of his mouth whenever he said, "Let there be light." The God who created all of this, we know the distance between where we stand and where we sit. Whenever we begin to understand that a little bit, suddenly, we realize just how insignificant all of us are. Humility allows anyone to approach me as my peer, no matter how old they are, no matter how much money they have, no matter what they can do. Humility says you and I, we're equal. Humility says that what makes us special isn't the amount of money we have in our bank account. What makes us special is the fact that I am loved by God. Because at the end of the day, you have no control over when you're born or whom you're born to. And you have no control over where you're going or when you're going to die or how you're going to die. Humility says, come to me. We're on equal footing. Do you know what gentleness is? Gentleness is choosing to come to you at your level of strength and your level of weakness rather than from my level of strength. Gentleness is the difference between picking up a contact with the tip of your finger and picking up a sledgehammer with the palm of your hand. I can do both. But it's choosing to be delicate. Gentleness says that I care more about you in our relationship than I care about you knowing how strong or capable I am. Gentle. Patience. Patience is choosing to move at someone else's pace. That's all it is. You should try it sometime. Next time you're driving down the road, don't change lanes. Just follow the person in front of you. And then Paul continues in verse 13. He says, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive. Forgive how? Forgive as the Lord forgave you. And over all these virtues, kind of like an overcoat, put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. And just a reminder, Paul wrote this while in prison as a result of real persecution. He said compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, wrapped in the overcoat of love. These things are timeless. These things I can guarantee you will never go out of style. These things will always be in fashion. And I just want to be really honest with you, church. Can I do that? I don't care. I've got the mic. I'm going to do it anyway. I'm terrible at this. Absolutely awful. If I was to open up my wardrobe looks nothing like compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, patience. Man, I love to tell everyone about how humble I am. It's my humility that makes me better than everyone else. If I could be really honest, if I really looked in my wardrobe looks more like selfishness and self-importance. Just a couple days before writing this message, I was driving. I was trying to get to work. I was running late because, that's what I do. I'm a millennial. I was trying to get to work, and there was someone who was driving in front of me, and they're just going slower than what I was wanting. And so here it is. I'm in my car. The only person or thing that can hear me is God. And I'm ranting and raving because this person is driving slower than I want to drive. Oh, I get all sorts of excited about it. I'm like, don't you understand that I have places I need to be? I need to get to Starbucks. Come on, I literally work for God. I'm important. I just got back from a 1,500-mile round trip down to Tennessee and then through the entire state of Tennessee and then back up. And on the way home, I was ready to be home. I have 5 days, and I didn't sleep in the same bed more than once, and it was just a mess of a trip, a wonderful trip at the same time, but I wanted to be home, and here it is, someone's just, every time I would finally get to be able to pass the person in front of me, here was another semi-truck would cut over in front of me. And I'm just losing my mind, and my kids are back there, and they're getting into it, they're like, yeah, you tell them, Dad, and then Brittany's like, what are you teaching on this weekend again? Shut up, woman. If I could be really honest, church, somewhere along the way we missed this. Somewhere along the way we messed this up. Somewhere along the way we failed. Because everywhere I look, I see anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language from one another, about one another. And the world is watching. We sit around and we wonder why. Why is the world, why is America becoming so hostile to the message of Christianity? We cry about our persecution here in the U.S. We whine about how the schools aren't hospitable to us. Church, we need to stop blaming our woes on the world when somewhere along the way we lost. We took off what makes us holy. And we put back on that old, ugly jacket. That old skin. Our old lives, anger, rage, malice, slander, and filthy language, somewhere along the way we compromised. and we traded genuine love and care and concern for others for me. And sadly now, even the world is out there saying, hey, that clothes you're wearing, that selfishness, that self-importance attitude, it's out of style. You want proof that if we put these things on, that we would have a better future? That's what I want everyone to do. Close your eyes for a minute. Close your eyes. Imagine with me for a moment. If we had gotten these things right, if we had gotten compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience wrapped in love, and yes, I know I've said that a significant amount of times, but I'm just hoping that maybe some of us, including myself, will be reminded of them as we leave here in a few minutes. If we had gotten these things right, we could look back on history and we could say, whenever the people were enslaved, Christians stood in a unified front against it. If we had gotten these things right, whenever women were fighting for the right to vote, we could say that Christians, all Christians, men, women, children, we stood together and we fought against the people who were oppressing them. If we had gotten this right, we probably never would have needed a civil rights movement at all. Now think about it. Keep your eyes closed. If we want to have any authority to speak to what is right or wrong to our kids and our grandchildren, we have to get this right. And look around in the world today. See what is happening today. And ask yourself, what does compassion require of me? Compassion says, I may not be able to know your experience, but I'm going to try. What does compassion say or require of me? As you look around and see what's happening today, ask yourself, what does kindness require of me? Would I still make the same decision? Would I still share that same post? Would I still say that about that group of people if I truly understood what humility was? Gentleness and patience wrapped in love. Now, as you ask those questions, I want you to go out and act in accordance to what those things require of you. Not what your interest is, not what your best intention is, but what those things require of you. Because one day, 40 years from now, people are going to be looking back on the year 2020. And by that time, people are going to know that there was a very clear right and a very clear wrong on a lot of these issues. And do you want to stand there and say, well, we didn't all agree? Or do you want to say, we as Christians, we stood in a united front and we stood against oppression, we stood against the things that are happening? Why? Because those things are evil. And because we chose to take off the clothing of rage, malice, anger, filthy language, we took off the clothing of selfishness and self-importance, and we put on the clothes of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. I'm going to pray in a moment. But at the end of this, Rachel is going to lead us in a guided prayer for the entire church to pray together. And what I ask is that when we do this, you don't just say the words Allow this to be a moment where you truly look inside. Let's pray. God, I love you. And God, I'm so thankful that you are a God who is not content leaving us in our own natural way. God, thank you for providing new skin. God, all I ask is that you help myself and everyone here to keep our new skin on, and that we don't go back, because that is dead and had an expiration date. But God, your way is timeless. It's in your name we pray. Amen.